Hey, Stephanie, welcome. It must be Wednesday.
It must be Wednesday. And I was just saying, thinking at least in my head, as I was looking at the pictures of us standing next to each other, am I that much taller than you?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm older, so I'm shrinking. I don't know how that
that
happens,
happened.
but you're not much taller than I. I think we're both the same size. You were wearing high heels that day, I think.
True, true. Yeah, and you don't wear high heels that often, so.
No, not that often, not that often. But this is Kick on Healthy Relationship to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. She's a terrific author, and she does terrific work with all kinds of people, and we'll share a little bit of what she does. And I'm Steve Vaccaro. I'm a psychologist, and together we have this show every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the goal here is to create healthy relationships or to get out of the unhealthy ones, right, Steph?
Yep. Yeah. We started doing this, after we met at actually a fundraiser for breast cancer. And once we started talking, we said, okay, we have to do something together as a psychologist and a coach. And my expertise of helping people heal from toxic relationships. I mean, technically, I'm the expert in helping brilliant women date up, which just basically means there's a lot of really smart, amazing, wonderful women who are successful in every other part of their lives, just not relationships. And we realized we had to really get the message out there to realize that you don't have to stay stuck and you don't have to try to force a relationship to work if it's not going to.
Right. And there's so many challenging relationships and situations out there due to the pandemic. So we carried on this show. We had one live show together in New York. Then the pandemic hit. You hightailed it out of New York and went to Texas and left me behind. But we continue to do the show every week in the pandemic, kind of trying to helping people there with difficult relationships.
The numbers of people in toxic relationships have increased. I mean, obviously, at least the ones that they might have been already toxic to begin with, but then going to work to being stuck in the same house with the same person all the time, it just exacerbated relationships that were already on the rocks. So this has been really important to keep this going throughout the pandemic and even past that in order to help people heal.
Right. And you can be contacted. We have our new Carmine. I want to thank Carmine for scrolling that stuff down on the bottom there. That's how you can be reached, right, and contacted.
Yeah, the best place to get me is my Facebook group. We do live streams there every Thursday where we train people about how to heal from toxic relationships. So if you are needing that, definitely my husband, actually, David and I, we go live in our free private Facebook group, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, which is the name of my book. There's my New Year's picture.
I love the hat.
Yeah. My kids love that. They think it's so funny. But yeah, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, which I just shared my story of overcoming toxic relationships and how other people can as well. So for those of you who are feeling stuck and feeling like maybe you're too old or it's not possible to change, definitely get that book. And I have a workbook too that goes along with it. Get those books and start working on yourself and join the group so that you too can get more knowledge.
I got to thank you because during the pandemic, I was doing my thing, helping with the community and kind of working with a lot of New Yorkers behind the scenes on the front line and during this pandemic. But then you kept pushing me with this whole business model and to kind of say, Steve, you got to get yourself out there a little bit more. You do great work. And I said, yeah. But you kept plugging away. And now I'm actually doing it more. So I want to thank you, Stephanie, for pushing me along the way to create a network of shows, 12 different shows. But also I'm actually starting starting 2 support groups for adults, young adults, and for parents. So we're hoping to start that actually in 2 weeks, young adult support group. It's a new world. Let's develop a better work ethic, network of friends to become more independent. So that's a critical thing. It'll be in person and virtual. And also a parent support group that we're doing, coping with life challenges and navigating the journey by empowering our children to succeed. Because in this day and age, the world will never, ever be the same. Wouldn't you agree?
Agreed. And the more support, I mean, the cool thing I have to say about the pandemic going on is that more and more things are being broadcast like this. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the different social media things, and of course, television. And so people that might not have been able to get information like this, like what we share, are now suddenly having access to all of these great resources. And again, to just know that they're not alone. I think that's the biggest thing. Like when you share your story, I share my story, and our guests share their story. It's such an empowering way for others to get inspired and realize that there are possibilities outside of the current situation that they're in.
That's right. And we have a great guest today. But before we get to Marta, who does amazing work, everything's been shut down. New York, Broadway's been shut down. So we created, and I didn't even share this with you, Stephanie. I hope you're going to like this new little segment. We created kind of throwback back in the day commercials, kick unhealthy relationships to the curb. And this is a little tribute to how much we love New York, how much we should love each other, but how much we really miss the arts and Broadway. Let's check it out.
There's only one Broadway. It's in New York. Introducing I Love New York Broadway Show Tours. 16 specially priced packages of shows and hotels. For a free booklet, see your travel agent or call toll-free 800-331-1000.
I love New York, especially in the evening.
That was cute. My favorite was the dog singing along to I Love New York.
Yeah. But you know what? It's kind of back in the day commercials. We have to get back to Broadway. We miss it. All these guys are out of work. They're not performing. And the love of Broadway, the love of theater is affecting our young people when they can't do theater and things like that and music. It's really hurting everybody.
I agree. I got my second vaccination yesterday.
Okay.
So I can't wait for a haircut. I can't wait to listen to live music somewhere. I can't wait to go to a restaurant, like all the things that I haven't been able to do since this pandemic started. So, those are the kind of things I used to love going to, shows in the city and go do all that kind of stuff. And I have a client of mine actually who just went to go see I want to say it was a Rangers game. And she said it was empty. She said she felt so comfortable because there was so much social distancing. There was like no concern about, they all had their masks on and everything else. But people are concerned, which I understand, about going into these large kind of sporting events and things like that. But we don't even realize who else is being affected. The athletes, the musicians, that like all of those things we kind of take for granted. All of those people haven't been able to work. So it's great that we're starting to move forward and people can get back to a more normal life.
So do we have a healthy or unhealthy relationship? Because I was about to tell you, Stephanie, you need a haircut. But if I tell you, is that healthy or is that unhealthy?
Well, here's the thing that I say to my husband and Marta when she jumps on. Marta's actually an amazing singer, by the way. I'm just going to plug her there for a second.
Okay.
My husband's a musician too. Weird. But anyway, the rule with my husband is if I ask you how I look at home, tell me honestly so I can still change. After we're out, you just tell me that I'm beautiful the whole time. You cannot change your mind after I'm out in public. So I'm out in public right now, Steve. I am amazing right now.
You are amazing. You're beautiful. Nothing should change about you.
Perfect.
There you go. So I'm good. And tell Dave I said hi. And he's been recovering for a couple months now. So God bless your family and his efforts. I know you do great work. But why don't you intro our guest here today?
Well, Marta, I don't even remember when we started talking. We've known each other now for a year or two. I mean, it's been a long period of time, but we touched base a long time ago. We actually did a cute little project last year, right about this time. I think it might even be to the day where we did just a thing about women empowering women, which was really cute. And I've been kind of following her journey of, where she started off. She's from Brazil originally, and she married an American, and now she lives in Colorado. She's doing a lot of really amazing work with her clients. So I'm just excited to have her come on. Oh, and she is a triplet mom. So anyone that's ever had one child or two children, you could really understand having three children all at the same time. She is like Superwoman.
That's unbelievable. Let's bring her onto the show. Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. We want to welcome Marta Spurk. Marta, welcome to our show.
Yay, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
Thank you very much. So you have triplets. Do you have time to sit down with us?
I'm hoping no interruptions. But yes.
How do you do it? How do you manage your brilliant career, but also manage your beautiful family and 3 lovely children?
Well, I always like to say that I like doing a million things at the same time, and that's probably why God said, "There you go, then have triplets. See how you handle that," you know. And it's really been my entire life is balancing plates all over the place, and I love it. I love the dynamics and how busy it is, and I feel like the more I do, the more organized I am with my time. Actually,
Wow. Now you're in Colorado, correct?
I am.
So has your family been safe and healthy during these crazy times?
Yes, thankfully, we haven't had any issues. My husband did get COVID around the holidays last year, but it wasn't too crazy of symptoms. He stayed home recovering, and none of us at the house got it. So we've been blessed.
Wow, that's
Yes.
great. Stephanie, share a little bit how you guys met. Do you remember when you first kind of connected and how you wound up on this show?
Yeah, so we connected in one of these entrepreneurial groups. I think it was the Boss Mom group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had just launched my podcast, which is going on 3 years in June now. And Stephanie was one of my first guests. So when I connected and asked people, I want to interview you, drop me, some comments and something about your business. And I was just instantly drawn to Stephanie and her work, and her story is incredible. So go on and check out the interview on my podcast with Stephanie. It was one of the first ones. So I'm super grateful.
It's been that long. That's why it's like time is such a weird thing. It's hard to even put anything because I feel like time is getting faster. Anybody else?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the older you get, the faster it goes. Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, definitely. And it's crazy because Stephanie meets so many great people like yourself, and they think that when I get to talk to them the first time, they say, "Oh, Stephanie's great. She does this and this and this." So the pressure is really on for me to maintain the level that Stephanie is at. So this is a great thing. So Marta, talk about the work that you do and why do you do it?
Yes. So I'm an empowerment coach, a marketing strategist. My passion really is uplifting and empowering women to realize that they are amazing as they are, and they have the potential to fulfill their dreams, but oftentimes they don't really know where to start, what their dreams are, and how to go after them. And then here I come as their little energizer bunny and motivation extraordinaire, I like to call myself, to be that little voice for them that they will then learn to nurture themselves. But in that beginning stage, be that helping hand and that encouragement that they have what it takes, and to allow their light to shine, and especially through entrepreneurship. So that has been the path that I have taken. I started working with moms and then with women empowerment in general, but my heart really is in helping these driven women that have all of these ideas to actually get on out there and implement them and impact more and more women and more people.
I love it. And the thing is, I think that women empowering women is such an important thing to do, because too often, the media, like you look around and there is sometimes this sense of competition, I think especially amongst women. And I think it's so important for women to realize, like, hey, let's come together. Imagine how powerful we could be if we do come together. In fact, my husband David said, he's like, if women really got together, like, do they understand how powerful, like, they would rule the world easily? And I'm like, yeah, we've just been letting you guys do it, Steve. Yeah, he knows. Steve knows. We've been letting you do it, but not for too much longer, guys. Women are coming up and understanding how much power they have.
Yeah.
I feel like threatened right now. I don't know what to do.
Well, but with what I do too, especially calling it empowerment, I always like to clarify that, because oftentimes people think that is feminism or anti-men, and that couldn't be farther from what my intentions are. It's actually the opposite. Once you are so self-assured and you step into your power, you understand that there's room for everybody, whether it be other women that are doing the exact same thing that you are in your eyes, but really they're not, because everyone's so unique, or whether it be men. We all need each other. And that's exactly what Stephanie said beautifully, that we complement each other, that we are so much stronger together when we uplift each other, because yes, there is this tendency of competition. And this is the very reason why I started this work, is because I started noticing these tendencies in myself, and I decided to challenge myself. What could happen if I turned my jealousy into admiration and into motivation for me to accomplish more and to reach more people? Because if she is doing it, then that means I can do it too, but my own way.
That's well said. This is KidCon Healthy Relationships to the Curb. We have every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Marta Spurk on the line on our show here tonight. And Marta, how do you begin the process of empowering women from the get-go?
So the beginning for me with empowerment is always with self-awareness. Oftentimes we want to jump the gun and get into the transformation right away. I just need to change. I just need to be a different person. You beat yourself up because people have been telling you that you need to change, or that, the way you're doing things is not working, or you recognize that the way you're living your life is not working. But in my point of view, it begins with understanding where you are at. How can you get to point B if you don't really know where point A even is? So understanding where you are. And one of the tools that I love the most, I love personality assessments, period. But my favorite one has been the Enneagram, which is a personality framework. It's not really a test. You can take the test to figure out where which type you fall in most likely. But it's an ongoing journey of understanding yourself and studying not only your main type, but the other types, because they are all interconnected. And that's really how self-awareness can help you with all of the relationships in your life. But it starts with your relationship with yourself, because it is the foundation for every relationship. So this is where we begin. It's okay, let's understand yourself so that you can stop hating who you are and start embracing who you are, so that then you can experience a transformation, not into something else, but into the person who you've always been and that you've been running from. Because that's what I've realized. Our entire lives, we run from who we are, because we think it's not enough. We think it needs to be like somebody else. And in reality, we need to be more of who we are, but we don't take the time to figure out what that is. So we feel lost.
I feel like I just was reading something yesterday. I don't know if it was a meme or something like that was saying transformation is not about becoming something else. It's about peeling back the layers to become who you've always meant to be before society thought you had to be somebody else.
Yes, that's 100% it. It's getting back to yourself, because we're constantly running away from ourselves, trying to look for ourselves elsewhere, but it's within.
Yeah.
Isn't there a level of denial when at first sometimes people may keep running from themselves and not really acknowledge who they are because it's too painful or too hurtful? How do you break that barrier or that ice initially?
Yes, 100%. I think the majority of our lives, we live in denial, and in different stages of denial. That's why I believe there are different stages of self-awareness. You can never be 100% self-aware as long as you're alive, right? And there are different stages of denial too. They go hand in hand. And the first step really is understanding that who you are right now is fine. It's amazing, right? Because it's the product of the decisions that you have made until this point. So now let's be more intentional with your decisions of today, because then you can intentionally shape the future. But what you've done up until this point, it's done. It's in the past. So instead of beating yourself up over it, actually study it and understand the patterns that have taken you here, so that you can be more intentional and not just, accidental with where your life is going.
And I think too, a lot of my clients, we get stuck in being angry for the past. Like, these things have happened to me. And so we go into victim mode. We get angry that we've experienced these things. And we could live there. We could stay there. And a lot of people stay there. But I think really where that growth is realizing all those things happened in order for us to get here. And then it's up to us to decide what to do with that. I can either hold on to that, or I can listen to the lesson that's there and then use that to move forward. So there might be areas where I had major growth because of that. And there are other areas where I might have future growth because of that. But all of it is just a lesson to help improve ourselves.
Right. And it's about taking that observer stance, because when you take that observer stance, you're able to disconnect emotionally and actually release forgiveness for the situations, and then have gratitude, because there are lessons. If you look hard enough, there's always lessons. And that's where gratitude comes in. And I always say that gratitude and forgiveness are two sides of the same coin, because when you forgive, you are intentionally looking for something positive in that situation. That's gratitude. And that's how you're able to let something go. It's not that I didn't think that was bad. It's not that it didn't hurt at the time, but I can intentionally and consciously now choose to be okay with it, because I choose to see the positives that have come out of that situation. So yeah, 100%.
So Stephanie, you brought up people are angry with the past. So do you, at first, when someone's sharing information or sharing their life, do you acknowledge that past and talk about it and let them get that out so they can talk about it to move forward? Or do you kind of cut it short so that you can move forward? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, one of the cool things I think, Steve, about the difference between like what you do and what I do, and even what Marta does, is that when you're a coach, you're really you talk about the past, but you're really about moving forward. And as a therapist, I think there's a little bit more really, really like unraveling the stuff that happened in your past. So there's a little bit of an overlap, but then it kind of goes in opposite directions. And so like with my clients, one of the first steps that I do in my group coaching program is I have them look at how they got here. Because a lot of people have been in toxic relationships over and over and over again in their lives. And they're like, I don't know why I keep choosing the same people. It's the same people over and over again, just a different face. And so we have to look at, well, why? Why did that happen? So we have a lot of different like little homework assignments and things for them to do to really look at why they've kept choosing the same people and then what they need to do next. And that basically, it's like one little segment of my program is backwards and then the rest is all completely moving forward.
Is that your approach, Marta?
Yes, I love how Stephanie explained that it really overlaps in a sense with therapy, but and then after a while, it goes more into let's look into the future. Because in order to be more intentional, just like what I was saying earlier, in order to be intentional with your decisions now to shape your future, you need to see what you've done that you didn't really enjoy, that didn't really get you the results that you expected. So it's all about gathering data and being emotionally detached, which is tough when you're talking about your past. But that's why not lingering in there and making it a point when we explain the journey to the client that we're visiting the past, not to dwell in it, but to learn from it, to understand what happened so that you can be more intentional with the future. So yeah, that's a very similar approach.
Yeah, and that's a fine line too, not to dwell in it, but to acknowledge it and move from it and to, and be empowered to, accept that change. We talk about social media, and during the pandemic, I know Stephanie and our work has really shifted to help those in need during this pandemic because they've been isolated. How has your work been during the pandemic, Marta?
Well, I have to say that it's grown exponentially because of people craving the community and craving relationships and having to resort to the online space. For me, it was tough right in the beginning. I didn't know what I was going to do because I was doing in-person events. And that was my main thing, an income producing activity was we're holding workshops and then funneling people into my coaching programs. And then when that went away, I was like, what am I going to do? And so I focused on nurturing those relationships online. And I've actually gotten to have more and more local clients. And we're so excited to actually be able to meet in person now that we've built this community online. So I think there's always a good side to everything, right? And I think if anything this pandemic has taught us is how much we need each other, how we are not meant to be an island. We're not meant to be alone.
Right. And again, Steph.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting because I feel like more and more people that I talk to, as much as this pandemic has been difficult and there's people that have been out of work and lack of food and all that kind of stuff, which is definitely to not minimize any of those things. But I've spoken to a lot of people who have taken the opportunity with a pandemic to really metamorphosize themselves. I mean, in the beginning, it was like, okay, how long is this going to last for? Oh, looks like it's going to be a bit longer than we thought. All right, now what? And I think a lot of people started to think outside of the box. And even, like you, Steve, too, think outside of the box and like, all right, whatever I was doing before, I can't do that anymore. And it kind of gave a lot of us an opportunity to do things very differently than we did before. And a lot of opportunity actually came out of the pandemic for, of course, some people. And I think it's really great to be able to see that it's not all negative, as so many people keep seeing it as. There's been a lot of positive as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And, Marta, my brother lives in Colorado, and we've had you booked for a couple of weeks now. And he noticed that someone like yourself was on local TV there. And then when I found out that Stephanie, you connected, you're going to be on, I kind of looked back in the archives and there you were. How'd you get that gig for the local television over there?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity of being in this morning news show quite a few times, a handful of times. I worked with a media expert in 2019 to get more exposure. And this is a funny story because she helps me with like getting more on podcasts, featured in articles, guest expert trainings. And she used to be a TV anchor. So that was one of the things that, it was part of the program, is I could help you pitch for TV. And I was kind of embarrassed to say that was one of the things that I wanted. And that's something that I have been learning and teaching my clients too, is that when you actually believe that your dreams you're deserving of your dreams, they actually happen. So I did tell this person, I was like, I want to be on TV. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I want to be on TV. And sure enough, I've developed this amazing relationship with the anchor. She's went on to leave her career of 28 years in January, but I've been able to keep contact with the other anchors and the reporters. And I just did a segment yesterday morning, actually,
Nice.
For Mother's Day too. So it's been an amazing experience for exposure, to challenge myself, because I love, be getting in front of people and being outspoken. And I've built great relationships that way too, by following my dream.
Stephanie, we got to do what Marta's doing. We got to do this.
I,
We got to get on TV.
well, hey, people that are watching this on Monday,
That's
they're going to
right.
be so
That's right.
excited to see this.
TV. That's right. That's right. But Marta, we have a little clip of you. I believe it's during one of your segments. So let's check it out.
Nice.
And this is a big issue when it comes to social media, especially. Social media can kill a woman's self-esteem. This can be anyone, especially women, though. Marta Spurk is here to give us some advice. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So just a few weeks ago, Facebook announced that they were experimenting with taking away the metrics for the likes feature, because over the years, there have been so many comments of how this affects people's self-esteem negatively.
And you like this. You like this idea, right?
Yes,
of taking that
totally.
away?
Yes, because we usually look so much at others to determine ourselves, and because it's so easy to be influenced when you're looking so much at other people's lives on social media, we kind of forget who we are. So my number one tip really is for you to really get to know yourself and understand who you really are, instead of waiting for people to label you, because even though we don't like to be labeled, it's almost like the norm. So that's what ends up happening. People tell us who we are, and then we forget who our authentic selves
true.
are.
Let's talk about celebrating yourself. How do you suggest we do that? I know that's your next tip.
Yes. So once you get to know yourself and you understand your strengths and what you're really, really good at, you can start learning to appreciate who you are instead of waiting for that compliment. Because usually we wait for somebody to validate us to make our day. How about you make your day and then take that compliment as just a bonus?
I love that. Okay, and your third tip for us this morning, look to the future.
Yes. So when we talk about, there's always room for improvement. We want to make changes, but usually we come from a place of self-hate. I hate where I am right now, so that's why I need to change. But that's not very, that's not positive. That's not really, that doesn't give you much hope for actually making a transformation. Whereas if you understand your faults, but you also celebrate your strengths, you can start change from a place of self-love. There's a saying when we're talking about weight loss that people say you can hate yourself skinny. Well, you can't hate yourself successful. You can't hate yourself happy. So might as well love yourself in this process.
I love that. Do you think that social media, because we talk about how it can hurt, how can it help?
Well, I feel like it really helps in connecting people.
Yeah.
And if we're spreading a good message, then that's the best way to spread this message all over and people having access to the good instead of to the bad.
I know you help people day in and day out. I love your social media because you make me feel good about myself, but you do that in other ways too.
Yes, so I'm actually going to have my very first in-person event here in Denver, and I am so happy that you're going to be there to speak to us too. I've gathered amazing, inspiring women that are going to be talking about self-esteem, self-image, and how they have been empowering other women through their work and, blazing their way to other women as well in the sense. It's going to be December 10th at 9:30 at Mile High United Way here in Denver.
Okay, we'll get more on that and I'll post on my social media. We need to support each other, right?
course.
Bottom line. Good to see you, Marta.
You too.
Thanks.
All right, good stuff, Nat. Appreciate it. Meantime, here at 8:20.
Nice.
That's
Wow.
so cool. Good job, Marta.
Thank you.
That is
I
great.
was so nervous.
So how
You can't tell.
often-
Right.
How often does that happen for you? And do they reach out to you if they need a thought on a specific topic or segment?
Usually I send out ideas every once in a while. I was sending pitches or ideas pretty much monthly because I was doing those events like what I was saying, and then I would get to promote the event since it's a local event. And then ever since I stopped the events monthly, then it's every couple of months I will send an idea. So recently I sent this idea for Mother's Day, and so I just got to talk about it. So it's just basically based on the holidays or what's going on in the world, I'll send an idea and usually they get me on.
Wow. And we talked before the show, and you mentioned, we're talking about healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. It could be a romantic relationship. It could be any kind of relationship. But we spoke about family, how sometimes extended family, if you don't set boundaries, it can really be a detriment to the couple or the family that we're talking about. So what's your thoughts on setting boundaries with extended family?
Yeah, speaking from experience, it's been quite a journey for me. I grew up in Brazil, like Stephanie said, very tight-knit family, Latin cultures. It's very common for people to live with their parents until they get married, which was exactly what happened to me. And leaving the nest is tough, and especially when you leave to another country, like it was in my experience. And it was tough. It was hard because also I grew up in a Christian environment. My mom is a pastor, so it was very conservative family, and it was hard for them to accept the fact that I was getting married and leaving to a completely different country. And so it was me having to be assertive and trusting my heart and trusting my gut to begin with. But it was also very hard because I didn't want that to affect my relationship with my parents negatively. It was kind of like a double-edged sword of, I need my freedom. I need to, emancipate, but I don't want to ruin our relationship. So it took a little bit of getting used to. I remember I used to talk to my mom on the phone every day for the beginning. And I didn't know how to, stop that, or it was just hard because she was concerned and I could understand. And now me being a mom, I see things in a different light as well. So that was the very first step for me. And it was interesting how my relationship with my parents evolved as I was able to enforce those boundaries. I became more of an adult. I became more of my own person, to the point where I didn't have to, depend on them or follow their instructions anymore. I could take their advice. I could listen to their advice and then decide what to do on my own. And then the same situation happened afterwards when I had kids. We actually had my triplets in Brazil. We were living there at the time, and then we decided to move away. And that was a little bit trickier because it was the grandkids. So it was even harder. We didn't leave in very good terms with my parents. And that is something that I know now, that it was even hard for me with my relationship with my husband, because I felt like I was in the middle the entire time, right? Do I choose my husband, the person that I chose to live with and to spend my life with? Or do I choose my parents? And the reality is, it's neither. It's you as a human being, right? As an adult, making these decisions, and there is room for everyone in your life if you set those boundaries correctly. And the other experience that I've had was a little bit of backlash with my online business, and this time with my husband's side of the family, because I'm very vocal and I share things online. That's part of my business. Not everyone understands that. And again, because of being very conservative and Christian, a lot of my talk on empowerment, self-love can sometimes be perceived as, so you're an independent person, you don't need God. How are you empowering yourself without God? So there was a little bit of cross lines in that sense. And again, I had to assert myself and say, this is my life. This is my job. This is my business. And it doesn't matter to me if you don't understand. It's not my job to convince you or to persuade you. I'm here to serve a certain group of people. And if you don't fit in that category, then it is what it is.
What gave you the courage to do that? Because I think that can be so difficult, especially with family, to say, hey, you know what, if you don't like it, like, too bad. Because, I feel like that's a conversation I have all the time, is that so many times people are trying to make everybody else happy that they get lost. So how did you really take your power back in setting those really important boundaries?
So for me, what, like, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was that I learned that they were actually going behind my back and talking to my husband about it. And I then understood that many of the conversations that I was having with him sounded the same. It was the same concept. And it's because they were talking, And that's when I said, okay, I need to cut ties, and I have to stop this.
The kids.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to go pretty soon here.
I can only imagine when I would do interviews, when my husband was sick and in the hospital and I was doing interviews, my two kids, I give them like electronics and then hope for the best. One time I actually left talking to Steve, doing one of these interviews, and I came outside and there was chalk that my son had found in the garage that he had like sprayed all over the floor, on the walls, in my bathroom, everywhere. I came out, I was like, oh my God, why? It was so quiet, but there was a reason. So I totally empathize.
See, the trick is my kids are 28 and 26.
Yeah.
I don't have that. But you know what? But it's important because Stephanie, her approach is to talk about personal experience, and obviously so do you, Marta. And I'm leaning towards that now. As a clinician, I've stayed away from that. But you hit home, and to a lot of people, and even myself, in my first marriage, that was a downfall. I could not set boundaries with her family, and and she let them in at all times, and it was very complicated. It affected where we live, the religion, the food we eat, everything, and it became extremely difficult and stressful in our marriage that it ultimately led to the divorce, which is painful, but that's what really happened. And I underestimate, you talk about triplets, she was a twin. So we lived in New York and then moved to Maryland, and I tried to work through that with her sister, but to no avail. It was really a challenge for her whole family, and ultimately our marriage.
So I know Marta actually has to go, little family jumping around over there. So we're going to let Marta, I want you to be able to finish up and just tell us, like, what do you want to leave the audience with, you know, after watching you and being inspired by all the great things that you do? What do you want to leave the audience with?
Well, one of the things that I always used to wrap up with, it's a quote by a British author that says, see your beauty without a compliment and without a mirror. And I've taken that to heart. And this is really the heart of my message too. And even the video that you posted of the segment on TV is learning to take compliments as a bonus, because you're doing it to yourself first, and seeing your worth without any external help. It's starting within.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on, Marta. We appreciate all the great work that you're doing. And we'll see you around. I'm sure if anybody's going to follow Marta, follow the link that's below. You can see all the great work that she does. I love seeing all the great photos and all the great stuff that she's doing. So definitely follow Marta and get inspired.
Thanks so much,
Marta.
guys.
We'll have to get you back on the show real soon. God bless.
Definitely. I would love that. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Marta.
Wow, Stephanie, a great guest, and she's full of life and she's full of passion to help others.
Yeah, and again, just to go back, I'm sure I think that another interesting thing about being in the pandemic is how you having to work from home. And I think, like, I was talking to someone today and her kids kept coming in and asking, like, hey mom, can I eat an orange? Hey mom, can I? she kept apologizing. I'm like, this is like video. This is life. This is what happens. At some point, my son will probably come in and say hello. Like, it's just what it is now. And I think that it's kind of a cool thing because we get to see behind the lens of where people really are living, what people really are doing. And I just love it because it's just so natural.
It is a natural. And you've been connecting, and we've been connecting with so many great people and so many great women that are doing great things. And we have a lot of great women in store for May and June. And I'm excited about all the different guests that we're going to have.
Yeah, we have next week, for those of you who are, starting to follow this, and, and again, we do go live every Wednesday in Facebook, and this gets rebroadcast on Mondays in cable in New York. And I think that one of the cool things that we have is such a diverse group of people that are coming on with us. And next week we have Gail, she's like this spunky lady, and she talks about how you can be healthy at any age because, we talked earlier about how society might tell women or men to behave a certain way. She brought up a really good point to me when we talked, is that society also tells basically, like, when you get older, you kind of have no worth, and especially women. I don't think men feel it the same way that women seem to, but it's kind of like you're over fill in the blank. You can decide what that age is for yourself, but you're over a certain age. You're not worth it. Nobody wants you. You're kind of invisible. They talk about, people aging out and becoming invisible. And so her thing is to really say, hey, you can be visible at any age. You can still dress nice. You can take care of yourself, still exercise, still have all that energy. She said, I have tons of energy, and people think, well, because I'm a certain age, I need to not have energy. And I think that I think that when we assume that we have to act a certain way, we kind of more easily act that way. Just like in a toxic relationship where like, hey, I'm stuck and trapped, I might as well just stay here, as opposed to, hey, I don't have to follow these rules. I can actually do something, make different choices.
Yeah, no, I've spoken to Gail several times in the last couple of days, and she's a remarkable woman. I mean, she's from Florida. She's originally from New York.
Yeah.
And she's she told me her age. She's 60, and she's done great work. She's nutrition is very important for her, exercising, and she does boxing. And she termed it she's in beast mode, you know, a lot of the times. And so she's really inspiring, because not only what she does, but it's teaching people at a certain age, you don't have to stop. You can get stronger.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so cool. And I think, you know, what's great about doing this Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb is that the relationships are not, they're always about ourselves. So the Kick Unhealthy Relationship to the Curb, is it the relationship with food? Is it the relationship with family, with significant others, with our jobs? You know, a lot of people have really toxic relationships with their jobs, you know, and again, to go back into the pandemic conversation, a lot of people that were frustrated going into work that now are home and working, they feel so much better because they don't have that boss that's breathing down, you know, their throat, looking at what everything they're doing, micromanaging, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes there's that office weirdness that goes on for some people that makes it uncomfortable to go to work. I mean, realistically, everything is some type of relationship. And if we can start to really have healthy boundaries and speak up for ourselves, our whole life starts to change.
No doubt. And I began to share a little bit based on what Marta was saying, that establishing boundaries with extended family is so very important, because if you don't, it's gonna kind of eat up your inside, and you're gonna accept or try to accept different things that were really intended to your marriage to decide. But when there are outside forces, family and not family, that are involved, anytime you have a triangle, it's always complicated, and it's going to be hurtful in some way.
And it's hard, especially, I was talking to a client not long ago that she was from Greece, and she grew up in a very strict, like very patriarchal family, and there was definitely some issues going on. And she moved to England, and, you know, just the trying to decipher what was healthy, what was not healthy, doing it on her own, not having her entire family telling her what to do. Even though they were in Greece and she was in England, they were still trying to tell her how to live her life. And then she was in a toxic relationship, and she didn't want to tell them, but then men had more power, so she had to be more submissive. I mean, it becomes a whole big mess of embarrassment and shame and guilt when the family gets involved, because we're afraid of, we don't want to let people down. You know, we want people to look at us in a positive way. We don't want to ruin their expectations of us. But again, the reality is, in the big frame of life, the importance is, like what Marta said, is the importance is you and your life. You know, if you go around living somebody else's life all the time, well, then on your deathbed, whose life did you actually live?
Right.
Kind of an important thing to keep in mind.
And Marty said too, you have to reflect on yourself first. And I think that was my failure in that initially so many years ago, is that I didn't know how to set those limits, or I didn't know how to navigate or work with my significant other at the time to help cope with that. And I tried, but it turned in, it was so powerful and so strong, that force, that it was unbending. But the partner also has to say, hey, my relationship is with him or with her, and to cut out everybody else. You could listen to that, but you shouldn't accept it, you know, the majority of the time, because it puts a strain on a marriage.
Well, and again, you know, what I was saying before, I think especially culturally, where there really is some people's backgrounds, like I said, the person from Greece, or the Italian families, or, you know, some of the Jewish families, or, you know, I've spoken to all these clients where they have very strong family ties, which is beautiful. But I think what a lot of kids have failed to learn after they become adults is, once you get married, that family tie is different between your family of origin and now your married family. And I think a lot of the parents don't know how to let that go and say, hey, this isn't my child, like my little baby anymore. This is an adult living their life with their own family. And it's hard, I think, for parents. And I can only imagine, you know, I have young children, and it's hard for me to imagine them with somebody else. And, even little, I'm sure I'll feel kind of similarly as they get older. But it's our family. So I'm sure the parents still want to protect that, but they have to realize, like, if you gave the right tools, your child is now ready to go off into the world and experience it for themselves without you telling them what to do all the time.
And there are also cultural differences too. I mean,
Yeah.
Marta brought up from Brazil, like sometimes Latin families are closer or tight knit or kind of more easygoing or accepting of others and other people's families. In generally speaking, sometimes the American family, once something is over, it's over, and you rarely go back to that if you're talking about a first marriage or a second marriage. So it's complicated sometimes when you come from a different country and to merge with someone in a different culture. So those issues have to be worked out as well before marriage, or definitely initially when you're first married.
Sure. I mean, my mom came from France when she married my father. And so there's not only the difficulties of figuring out and navigating a new marriage, but there's also the difficulties of navigating a new country at times. And then that throws a whole wrench in the game and makes it more difficult.
Right. Well, we're just about out of time, but I must say you are getting more out of me than ever, because I'm sharing a lot of different things. And it actually feels good about talking about this because I'm getting a lot of feedback that they said, Steve, I didn't know you went through some of this, or it kind of hits home, and especially with some of the guys watching the show. It's interesting because it's okay to talk about these things. And I know we have a guest that we just connected with today coming up, and she was kind of in the foster care system, and we kind of mirror backgrounds. So the different level of guests that are coming on are really going to hit home. You got to check this show out, Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's Stephanie McPhail, and I'm Steve Vaccaro. I'm a psychologist. She's a clinician. And you do wonderful work, Stephanie. We're going to tune out in a few moments, but share with people a little bit how people get a hold of you.
Sure. Well, right underneath that, there's scrolling. BeingLovedShouldn'tHurt.com is my website. But if you really want the really good stuff, I also have my link that we'll put up for my free private Facebook group, where my husband David and I go live every single Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We share tips and tools on how to heal from toxic relationships. Again, so many strong women, and we work with men too, which is really great. And a lot of the guys will say, hey guys, you don't have to deal with this. You can actually overcome this also. Don't be afraid to ask. So guys, if you're watching, you can join us as well. But, we have found that there are things that we can do to heal from these types of toxic relationships. And the most important thing is to not try to do it alone. Team up with Steve, myself. If we're not for you, that's fine. Find someone that you feel comfortable with to actually heal and get out of our own brain. Because like I say to clients all the time, your thinking got you here. Your thinking will not get you out. But if you use my brain, Steve's brain, we can help you have different thought patterns. If not, we just kind of keep repeating the same things without even realizing it because it's our own thought pattern. So really for the ones who really want to make sure that change happens for them, get a coach, get a therapist, get people on your team that are where you want to be and healthy in order for you to get there as well.
So, Stephanie, I have my date book with me with a pen. When is this woman takeover actually going to really happen so I can mark it down on my book?
It's happening slowly, very slowly.
I can't put it in my book? I don't know what
Hey, this is
right now?
This is the age. It's happening, Steve. It's happening. Just, be careful. We got a lot of strong women coming on this show. And so you're going to start to notice it even more and more as we keep going through this wonderful.
You and I are friends, right? I'm going to stay with you. Okay.
I got you. You're right here. I got you.
This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. I'm Steve Vaccaro. This is Stephanie McPhail. And Stephanie, another great show. Thank you so very much. God bless. And we have another great show in store. And follow us both. And it's about paying it forward. So take care of each other, love each other, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.